Good morning. You're watching an early edition of Fox and Friends First on this Monday morning. I'm Heather Childers.
And I'm Rob Schmidt. Straight to a Fox News alert now. London's mayor condemning this latest bloodbath as a horrific terrorist attack.
Police say a man used a van to mow down a crowd of worshipers leaving a mosque, killing one and injuring 10 others. The 48-year-old suspect arrested and being interrogated right now.
And Benjamin Hall is live at the scene in London on the phone with us with details on the hunt for more accomplices. Benjamin, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Heather and Rob, good morning. You know, we've been circling the scene where this happened, trying to get closer, but the whole area is closed down, streets closed, high police presence, and people urging caution. Tensions very much high here. You know, this was yet another attack, the fourth in just 4 months in the UK, but of course strikingly different because this is an attack carried out on Muslims. And it's using that same method that we've seen before, the truck to mow people down. And it is, as you say, being called a terrorist attack and being investigated by counter-terrorism police. It happened just after midnight here in North London, killing one man, injuring 10 others. In this multi-ethnic neighborhood, it was crowded with Muslims last night, leaving the local center after Ramadan prayers. The driver revving his engine, driving at speed into the crowd. Muslim leaders still asking the public to stay calm. Police have arrested the driver. He's a 48-year-old man. He was pinned to the ground by two bystanders until the police had arrived. Those two men are being called heroes. Eyewitnesses have also reported that while he was being held, the public, he said a number of times, "I've done my bit," and also, "I want to kill Muslims." Again, people urging caution.
He did what he did deliberately to hit and kill as many Muslims as possible. So he is a terrorist. So at this stage, we are calling for calm.
And eyewitnesses also reported that two other men in the vehicle got out and ran away. And of course, now manhunt to see if there are other accomplices here. And London police really taking no chances. They're closing the streets, urging caution, urging calm, so that this doesn't inflame already high issues in the region. And some community leaders pointing out that while this was an attack on Muslims, it was mainly an attack on this whole community and on the shared values here. Back to you guys.
Okay, Benjamin, thank you so much. All right, here again with more reaction to this story coming out of London this morning. Former U.S. Navy commander and founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Doctor, thank you so much for coming on this morning. Obviously, we've learned here that this mosque has previously had ties to terrorism. I think you spoke about al-Masri, I believe, earlier, back post 9/11. In a time in London where people are seeing deaths, seeing cars running over people, there's a lot of anger building up. People are, looking for a place to put it. Does it surprise you to see an attack like this happen?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that keeps us who we are is our rule of law. So to see the non-Islamists amongst us do the acts of what the Islamists, the radicals, have been doing is not only surprising, it's partly a defeat. It's a win for ISIS. So we can't let this rip us apart. We can't let our rule of law turn into sort of an eye for an eye. And really, our main weapon against radicalism and to prevent the radicalization of Muslims is our religious freedom, is our open society. And ISIS wants nothing more than to see Muslims become targeted so that they can then push them into their own radicalization.
Yeah, and as we've seen, they've called for attacks specifically like this, using vans, plowing into people. This particular incident, there were hundreds of people. They had just finished the day's final prayers for the holy month of Ramadan. Witnesses say this appeared to be definitely a planned attack.
It had to be, and I'll tell you why. Because our evening prayers that we do in Ramadan, there's the evening prayer that's always at the same time, that last evening prayer, but then we do Taraweeh prayers that are just a longer recitation of the entire Quran during the month. So that can take an hour, hour and a half, and every mosque varies. So the time in which that mosque let out, being around midnight for this mosque, can vary. With even a mosque down the street can have a different time in which they let out. So this was most likely, knowing the way our Muslim communities operate, was very planned in targeting that mosque. And I'll tell you, the Londoners know that a week ago in the Grenfell fire, Muslim communities that were awake for morning breakfast, for their evening prayers, were the ones that called the alarms, that called the police, and many have been saying that were some of the heroes that prevented more lives being lost in that Grenfell fire. So I hope Londoners, as they wake up today, realize that not only are Muslims at the head of the spear in the battle against radical Islam, but as part of the fabric of London society. Just last week they were reminded how the diversity was actually one of the benefits for saving lives in that fire.
Yeah, and I think what you said earlier makes a great point of the catch-22 that is this problem. You say that the best way to combat this is to remain an open society and to welcome people in and to let them live their life the way they want to live it. But at the same time, that also opens our doors to extremism, and it gives an easier path to terrorists to do these types of things. Isn't that the problem, is that we're all trying to figure out how to stop this, and one side has this idea and the other side has the other?
Absolutely. And the reason the radicals want to enrage Muslims and non-Muslims is because the calmer our society is, the more there's rule of law, the more there's free speech, equality between men and women, the more we stamp out anti-Semitism and homophobia and all the underbelly of radical Islam, the less they can spread their ideas of theocracy, etc. So they sow violence and they continue to try to rip us apart. The main weapon against this, we have to sort of get out of this cycle of saying we're just going to look for the violent ones before they put on a suicide belt. The main weapon is advancing into Muslim communities, ideas of freedom and liberty and being pro-Britain. Brexit was a great thing, actually, for fighting this ideology. Hyper-nationalism and militant hyper-nationalism is not. And I'll remind you, Muslims might be a target now of some hyper-national groups, but other minority groups will also be. So Europe has to start to look back at how to assimilate ideologically not only Muslims but many minorities.
Yeah, all the more reason for these Muslim groups to speak out and let it be known what's happening to them and how we can all come together to stop it. You know, it doesn't really take people also crossing borders to become radicalized because of the whole internet and social media. That alone is doing it.
As the president said, it needs to be a fight from the inside. Muslims need to take it on themselves. All right, thank you so much, Doctor. We appreciate that.
Thank you.